Some teens don't just run away, they vanish after crossing paths with groups that promise belonging, truth, or a new life. Secretive communities, strange rules, and unanswered questions surround their disappearances. Were they manipulated, trapped, or silenced? Let's uncover 5 teens who vanished after joining mysterious groups. Story 1. On a quiet stretch of farmland in eastern Idaho, 2 siblings vanished without a struggle, without a goodbye, and without leaving behind a single clear answer. In a community where people tend to know one another, their sudden absence created unease and raised a troubling question. Did they leave by choice, or were unseen influences quietly at work? Rachelle Fischer was 15 years old, described by loved ones as mature, thoughtful, and deeply protective of her younger siblings. Her brother, Alan Fischer, was 13, quiet, observant, and closely bonded to his family. The two shared a strong connection, often staying close to one another in unfamiliar situations. They lived with their mother, Elizabeth Roundy, in Montague, Idaho, a small rural community. Elizabeth had left the Fundamentalist Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, known as the FLDS, by 2020, after growing concerned about its beliefs and internal structure. Since then, she believed her children were adjusting to life outside the group, attending school, and following normal routines. On June 22, 2025, Elizabeth allowed Rachelle and Alan to visit a local internet shop. When she returned later that evening from a family Bible class, she discovered both children were gone. There were no signs of a struggle, no notes, no messages. Their personal belongings were left behind. The siblings simply failed to come home. As hours passed without contact, concern escalated. Within days, authorities issued an Amber Alert after determining the siblings could not be located. Alan was last seen wearing a blue shirt and blue jeans, while Rachelle was wearing a green dress. Investigators publicly stated they were examining whether the siblings may have had contact with individuals connected to the FLDS and whether they may have traveled to Trenton, Utah. The FLDS is a religious group that separated from the mainstream LDS church and is known for living in insular communities with limited outside interaction. The group has long been associated with Warren Jeffs, who was arrested in 2006 and has been serving a life sentence since 2011. Despite this, some followers continue to view him as a religious authority, or former members have alleged that young people within the group were sometimes pressured into decisions shaped by obedience and loyalty. Authorities have emphasized that no evidence has been publicly released confirming that the siblings were taken, coerced, or transported by any organization. Another theory suggests the teens may have left voluntarily, possibly believing they were heading toward a place of familiarity or belonging. Adding to the concern, Rachelle and Alan's older sister, Elantra D. Fischer, disappeared in 2023 at the age of 18. While investigators have not confirmed a direct link between the cases, the pattern has raised questions within the family. For Elizabeth, the disappearance reopened deep emotional wounds. Not only the loss of 2 children, but the fear that she once sought to leave behind may still have reached them. She has spoken publicly, urging anyone with information to come forward and reminding the public that Rachelle and Alan are still minors. The uncertainty has been compounded by the unresolved disappearance of Elantra, leaving the family searching for answers about all 3 siblings. What if the siblings believed they were choosing safety, not disappearance? And when children are guided by adults tied to insular belief systems, how free is that choice? Story 2. In the summer of 2000, an ordinary shopping trip in a quiet English town led to a disappearance that puzzled both police and family. There was no argument, no visible danger, just a brief conversation and a leaflet handed out in passing. What followed would raise difficult questions about belief, influence, and how easily a life can change direction. Bobby Kelly was 16 years old and lived in Romford, England, with his family. Relatives described him as polite, thoughtful, and close to his grandmother, Ruth Kelly, who often accompanied him on errands. He was an ordinary teenager, attending school and living a routine life typical for someone his age. There was no indication that Bobby was unhappy at home or planning to leave. His family later said nothing about his behavior, suggested he was preparing to disappear or cut ties with those closest to him. On June 27, 2000, Bobby went shopping with his grandmother in Romford. While walking through town, they encountered Susan and Roland Gianstefani, who were handing out illustrated flyers for a small religious group called the Jesus Christians. The interaction appeared brief and harmless. Bobby accepted a leaflet, and the family gave it little thought at the time. But in the weeks that followed, relatives noticed changes. Bobby became increasingly focused on religious ideas and began withdrawing from familiar routines and relationships. Not long afterward, Bobby left home. When he failed to return, police initially treated the situation as a runaway case. However, it soon became clear that this was not an impulsive act. Bobby had chosen to align himself with the Jesus Christians and had left voluntarily. The Jesus Christians described themselves as a live-by-faith Christian community. According to former members, media reports, and watchdog organizations, the group encouraged members to reject material possessions, formal education, and close family ties. Members often lived nomadically, distributing religious literature in public places. The group denied being a cult and stated that members were free to leave at any time. There was no evidence that Bobby was physically restrained. However, his family expressed concern that he may have been under a strong psychological influence. As concerns grew, legal action was taken. A court order was issued making Bobby a ward of the court, preventing him from being taken out of the country. Authorities feared that if he were isolated abroad, finding him could become far more difficult. In July 2000, the BBC published an article titled "Cults Playing for Keeps," which examined Bobby's case. Experts interviewed said such groups often rely on emotional and social influence rather than force, offering a strong sense of purpose and belonging. Former cult member Ian Haworth explained that new recruits are often taught prepared responses to deflect family concern, and that the experience can initially feel positive and affirming, especially for young people. Bobby's family worked closely with authorities, balancing relief that he was alive with concern about how far he had drifted from his former life. The uncertainty and lack of clear answers caused significant emotional strain during the weeks he was missing. Eventually, officers from the Metropolitan Police's Kidnap and Specialist Crime Unit located Bobby living in a tent with members of the group in a wooded area near Mitchett, Hampshire. He was physically unharmed and later returned to his family. What if the most powerful influence isn't force, but the promise of belonging? And how easily can a choice feel voluntary when guidance comes from one direction only? Story 3. On a winter morning in the mountains of Southern California, a teenage boy walked away from a place meant to help him. He left without witnesses, without a phone call, and without leaving behind anything that explained where he was going. Surrounded by forest and freezing temperatures, Daniel Ted Yuen disappeared, leaving behind questions that remain unanswered decades later. Daniel Ted Yuen was born on August 20th, 1987, in Edison, New Jersey. Described by friends and family as intelligent, gentle, and introspective, Daniel was not known to act impulsively. He enjoyed creative pursuits and was considered thoughtful beyond his years. In his sophomore year of high school, Daniel experienced a difficult breakup that deeply affected him emotionally. Concerned for his well-being, his parents, Lisa and Wayne Yuen, sought professional guidance and followed recommendations they believed were in Daniel's best interest.
Developed in 1967, Sea-Doo helps young people reach their true potential, the potential they may not know they have. The Sea-Doo family of services helps children help themselves.
In late January 2004, Daniel was enrolled at Sea-Doo School, a private residential program located in Running Springs, California. The campus sat high in the San Bernardino Mountains, surrounded by dense forest and exposed to harsh winter conditions. On the morning of February 8, 2004, Daniel was last seen on campus at approximately 10:45 a.m. According to reports, he told staff he was going to buy cigarettes. At some point afterward, he left the campus on foot. Daniel was not dressed for freezing temperatures and did not take supplies, money, or personal belongings. He never returned. When staff realized Daniel was missing, authorities were notified. Search efforts began quickly, involving law enforcement, volunteers, helicopters, and search dogs. The surrounding terrain, steep, wooded, and snow-covered, was thoroughly searched. Despite extensive efforts, no physical evidence was found. As the search produced no results, investigators considered multiple possibilities. One theory suggested that Daniel may have become lost in the wilderness and succumbed to the elements. Another explored whether he may have encountered someone after leaving campus. Questions also emerged about the environment Daniel had been living in. Sea-Doo described itself as a therapeutic program for teens facing emotional challenges. However, over time, former students and advocacy groups raised concerns about strict rules, intense group sessions, and reliance on emotional pressure rather than traditional therapy. The program had historical connections to Synanon, a now-defunct organization that had drawn scrutiny for controversial practices. Sea-Doo maintained that it operated independently and legitimately. Authorities have never confirmed whether the program played any role in Daniel's disappearance. For Daniel's family, the absence of answers has been devastating. As years passed without new leads, their focus shifted from searching terrain to searching for understanding. In 2005, Sea-Doo filed for bankruptcy and closed its campuses amid growing scrutiny. While this development raised further questions, it did not bring closure to Daniel's case. More than 20 years later, his loved ones continue to hope someone may still come forward with information about Daniel's final hours. What if the environment meant to help Daniel instead deepened his isolation? And what answers disappeared the moment he walked into the cold? Story 4. On a cold October evening in rural Michigan, two teenage girls stepped out for what should have been a short, familiar walk. The town was quiet, the route well known, and nothing suggested danger. When they failed to return home, concern spread quickly. More than 50 years later, their sudden disappearance remains one of Michigan's most enduring mysteries. Patricia Ann Patty Spencer was 16 years old, born on January 10, 1953. She was described as outgoing, responsible, and deeply connected to her family. Pamela Sue Pam Hobley was 15, born on May 24, 1954, and known for being kind, dependable, and thoughtful. The girls lived in Oscoda, Michigan, a small lakeside community along Lake Huron, where neighbors knew one another and serious crime was considered rare. Although Patricia and Pamela knew each other, they were not especially close friends. Still, both were familiar with the area and comfortable walking through town in the evening. Neither girl had a history of running away, and there were no known problems at home that might suggest they planned to disappear. On the evening of October 31st, 1969, Patricia and Pamela were last seen walking together away from Oscoda High School. Witnesses reported they appeared calm and unhurried, heading toward nearby streets that led toward the Lake Huron shoreline. The walk should have taken only minutes. When the girls did not return home, their families contacted police. Officers began searching almost immediately, joined by friends, neighbors, and volunteers. Despite extensive efforts, investigators found no signs of a struggle, no abandoned belongings, and no witnesses who could say where the girls had gone or who they might have encountered. It was as though they had simply vanished along a familiar route. As days passed without answers, the search expanded. Police examined nearby roads, wooded areas, shoreline paths, and sections of Lake Huron. Nearby properties were checked and tips were followed up on, but none produced solid leads. Investigators considered several possibilities. One theory explored whether the girls may have encountered someone they knew or trusted. Another questioned whether they may have accepted a ride, believing it to be harmless. Without physical evidence, authorities could neither confirm nor rule out foul play. What troubled investigators most was the complete lack of clues. In a populated area, on a route the girls knew well, nothing was left behind to explain what happened. For the families of Patricia and Pamela, the uncertainty has been lifelong. As years passed, hope shifted from immediate rescue to the possibility of answers, any explanation that could bring understanding. Advances in forensic science brought renewed interest in the case over the decades, but without physical evidence, progress remained limited. No confirmed sightings were ever reported, no remains were found, no arrests were made. The town of Oscoda has changed since 1969, but the questions surrounding that night have never faded. What if Patricia and Pamela believed they were only moments away from safety? And what truth still lies hidden along a path that once felt familiar? Story 5. On a late summer night in the historic city of Maastricht, an 18-year-old university student began a short, familiar ride home. The streets were quiet, the distance brief, and the destination close. When she never arrived, her disappearance became one of the Netherlands' most enduring mysteries, marked by missing time, missing evidence, and questions that lingered for decades. Tanja Afra Maria Groen was born on June 23, 1975. She was an intelligent, motivated young woman who had recently moved to Maastricht to begin her studies in psychology at Maastricht University. Friends and family described her as responsible, thoughtful, and excited about this new chapter of independence. As a first-year student, Tanja was adjusting to life away from home, attending classes, meeting new people, and taking part in student traditions common at Dutch universities. These activities were widely seen as a way for new students to socialize and settle into campus life. There was nothing in Tanja's background to suggest she planned to leave her life behind or put herself in danger. On the night of August 31st, 1993, Tanja attended a party organized by members of a student society, a legal and long-standing part of university culture in the Netherlands. According to witnesses, the gathering ended without incident. Sometime after midnight, shortly after 1 a.m., Tanja was seen leaving the party alone on her blue bicycle. She was heading toward her student housing, less than 2 kilometers away, a ride that should have taken only a few minutes. She never arrived. When Tanja failed to appear the next morning, friends quickly grew concerned and contacted authorities. Police began searching the route she was believed to have taken. Her bicycle was never found. No personal belongings were recovered. There were no confirmed sightings after she left the party. Search efforts expanded rapidly. Police examined roads, open fields, wooded areas, and nearby waterways. Divers searched canals and rivers. Posters were distributed throughout Maastricht and the surrounding regions. Investigators worked to reconstruct Tanja's final hours, focusing on who she spoke with at the party and how she left. Some witnesses were unable to recall details clearly, and no complete timeline beyond her departure could be confirmed. Over time, multiple theories were considered. One possibility was that Tanja encountered harm after leaving the party. Another suggested she may have accepted help or a ride, believing it to be safe. Some speculated she crossed paths with someone connected to the event. However, no physical evidence ever supported any single explanation. No organization or individual was officially charged or named as responsible. For Tanja's family, the years that followed were marked by uncertainty and quiet endurance. Periodic renewed searches and advances in forensic technology brought brief hope but few answers. In 2023, authorities confirmed that remains discovered years earlier belonged to Tanja Groen. While this finally confirmed her death, it did not explain how she died, where she had been, or what happened after she left the party that night. No arrests have been made, and the case remains unresolved. What if Tanja believed she was safe on a route she knew by heart? And what truth still lies hidden in the minutes between leaving the party and never arriving home? Across decades and countries, these teens stepped into situations promising belonging and were never seen the same way again. Questions remain, answers are scarce, and silence persists. This is Vanished Stories, where the missing are never forgotten